I always thought being a pilot was my calling. But it was cruelly snatched away from me in an unjust manner. I should stop thinking about it. Just as I decided to stop thinking and was about to close my eyes to sleep, it happened. With a tremendous bang, the whole plane shook violently. Screams erupted from the passengers. "Please, someone help." In the midst of the chaos, a flight attendant with a look of despair was pleading for help. "Hey, are you okay? What happened?" I pressed her for answers. Little did I know, this action would lead to such a situation. My name is Shane. I used to fly around the world as a pilot. Yes, up until just a moment ago that was certainly the case. Ah. I let out a sigh of frustration with myself. Why did this have to happen? Even now, I can't accept it. But there was nothing I could do. I clenched the termination notice I was holding. It all started with a certain aviation accident. It happened during a flight one day. That day, I boarded the plane as the captain. "Good morning, Jared. I'm counting on you today." "Yes, thank you." The co-pilot that day was a junior of mine named Jared. He was a newly minted co-pilot, but being the son of Mr. Johnson, the head of the aviation bureau, he was highly expected by everyone around. I'm planning to let Jared handle the controls once we're stable. If there's anything you don't understand, don't hesitate to ask. Just because you became a captain a bit earlier than others, doesn't make you great. What? Did you say something? No, nothing. Jared seemed like a serious young man, but at times he muttered under his breath, making it hard to understand what he was thinking. Well, I thought it was normal to not get along with one or two colleagues, so I didn't pay much attention to Jared and focused on my duties. "Alright, we're about to land soon." "Jared, you did pretty well." "Ah, thank you." I had been letting Jared gain some experience by occasionally letting him control the flight, and just as the day's flight was about to end smoothly, it happened. With a loud bang, the aircraft shook violently. Could it be a bird strike? A flock of birds appeared in my field of view. I quickly assessed the situation and gripped the control stick. "Jared, contact the air traffic controller. It's a bird strike. The engine is damaged. Ask for guidance to a possible landing spot." I tried to remain calm as I gave out instructions. "Okay." Jared's face turned pale, but he managed to follow my instructions. It's not surprising. Accidents like this rarely happen. "Jared, don't panic. This is the time to stay calm, observe your surroundings, and assess the situation. It's okay. I'll handle the rest." While continuing to control the plane, I racked my brain on how to overcome this predicament. Strangely, I always seem to naturally know the best course of action in such situations. However, this time, we were forced to land at an unplanned airport. Fortunately, there were no injuries, but it goes without saying that the accident caused quite a stir. And at that time, I had no idea that this incident would lead to such consequences. That day, I compiled the accident report. Thanks to you following instructions properly, we managed to minimize the damage. Thanks. No problem. Well, all that's left is to submit the report, and then we're done for today. Shane? I was stopped by Jared calling me. I turned to him, wondering what was unusual. "What's up?" "Well, I'll submit the report. I have some other business over there too." "Okay. Got it. I appreciate it." "Yes. Leave it to me." "Excuse me then." Saying this, Jared left. I could say that my action at that moment made it all go wrong. The next day, I was wrongfully accused. Wait. There must be some mistake. I don't remember submitting such a report. No one would listen to my desperate plea. The contents of the report I submitted the day before had been tampered with by someone. According to the falsified report, the plane accident was due to my piloting error resulting in an emergency landing. I didn't want to believe it. But there was only one person who could have done this. "Shane, you're not good at giving up. Why don't you just admit your mistake?" "Jared." I glared in the direction of the voice. There was Jared, looking down on me with disdain in his eyes. As I was struck dumb by the shock, Jared quietly approached and whispered in my ear. I don't care if you're the fastest ever genius pilot to become a captain, you've always been an eyesore. Please disappear from my life as soon as possible. With those words spoken lowly, Jared gave me a cold smile. In the end, all my arguments were dismissed and I was fired, ostensibly to take responsibility for the accident. Additionally, my pilot's license was revoked. Suddenly stripped of the job I had dedicated everything to, I was at a loss. Come to think of it, it's been a while since I've been home. Suddenly, I thought of my parents. Maybe I should visit them. Despite the circumstances, it might be a good opportunity to think positively. I took out my phone and decided to call home. Hello, this is Alice. After a few rings, my mom answered the phone. Ah, Mom. It's Shane. Oh, Shane. It's been a while, what's up? Sorry to spring this on you, but I'm thinking of coming over. Oh, really? What is it? Shane, are you going to introduce us to a girlfriend? Unfortunately, no. Sorry, Mom, I just felt like coming back. I see. Alright then. Oh, Shane, hold on a second. Your father wants to talk too. After a pause, I heard my father's voice from the other end. Shane? Yeah, Dad, it's been a while. You're coming home, aren't you? Yeah. What, are you bringing home a wife? No, that's not it. What's with you and Mom both going on about that? I couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps my dad and Mom could sense that I wasn't quite myself. Well, if you're coming home, it means you can relax for a bit, right? Stay as long as you like. Thanks, Dad. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. It's been a while since I heard their voices. I felt a warm sensation spreading slowly inside my chest. Alright, let's go home. For now, I decided not to think about anything and just head back to my family home. I quickly booked a plane ticket. A few days later, I boarded the plane I had reserved to go home. My seat is here. I found my seat and sat down. Although I was used to flying, being a passenger felt strangely different. Can I never go back to being a pilot? The thought brought a surge of fear. At the same time, I lamented internally about how things had come to this. I had always thought being a pilot was my true calling. But it had been unfairly ripped away from me. No. I should stop thinking about it. Regretting it now wouldn't help. There was nothing I could do about it anymore, I reminded myself. Actually, being a passenger isn't so bad. I peered out the small airplane window. The plane was just taking off, quickly gaining altitude. As I watched the land slowly recede below, I started to doze off. That was when a tremendous impact shook the entire cabin. Screams filled the air. What the? I was instantly wide awake. I looked out the window. This is... A flock of birds entered my view. It was just like that time. How can this be happening again? Such a coincidence. I hadn't expected to face this situation twice in such a short period. It was a bird strike. As I was thinking about whether the aircraft and pilots were okay, the plane suddenly tilted sharply, causing a larger wave of screams. This isn't good. The cabin was in utter panic. Some people tried to stand up while others crouched and cried out. As I was pondering what I could possibly do, it happened. Please, someone help. Amidst the chaos, a flight attendant with a look of despair was pleading for help. Hey, are you okay? Unable to just sit there, I confronted her. What happened? You are. I'm a pilot. Is there anything I can do to help? Really? Oh, please help. The captain has passed out from the shock. The captain has. What about the co-pilot? I asked, and she looked dismayed. That's the thing, the co-pilot today is a rookie, and Whoa. The plane shook violently again, and I managed to catch the stumbling flight attendant and stand up. We can't just sit here, come with me, please. Yes, yes. Together with the flight attendant, I made my way to the cockpit. We raced down the long aisle of the shaking cabin and finally reached the cockpit. Are you okay? Who are you? Calm down. I might not look it, but I'm an experienced captain, keep holding the controls. I'll take over now. As I had heard, the co-pilot was indeed a young man, his eyes brimming with tears as he panicked. While calming him down, I first checked on the captain, who was unconscious in the pilot's seat. Good, he has a pulse and he's breathing. It seemed the captain's life was not in danger. After checking on him, I addressed the young co-pilot. Swap with me. You contact the control tower. Request an emergency landing. Can you do that? Yes. I took over the controls from the co-pilot. I never thought I would be handling these controls again, yet they fit comfortably in my hands. It's okay, I will save everyone. I had lied about being a pilot. After all, I no longer had that qualification. But I couldn't just stand by. I was here to save the lives in front of me once again. Permission for emergency landing granted. Understood. Hey, can you make the announcement to the passengers? We're starting the landing approach. Yes. Slowly, the aircraft began to respond to my commands. I aimed for the runway where we were cleared to land and started the landing procedures. I don't remember much of what happened next. I was completely focused. When the airplane touched down on the runway and finally stopped, cheers and applause erupted from the passengers. Phew, that was a bit tense. I released the control stick I had been gripping tightly. My shirt was soaked with sweat. The plane had landed safely. Fortunately, there were no injuries among the passengers, and after evacuating them, we managed to get the injured captain into an ambulance and I could finally take a breath. It's finally over. Excuse me. I turned around at the voice from behind. There stood the flight attendant and the young co-pilot from earlier. Oh, you are? Yes. Thank you so much. You saved all the passengers, the captain, and my brother and me too. Eh? Your brother? Yes, that's me. She's my sister and, oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Michael. As he spoke, the young co-pilot handed me his business card. I am Claire, his sister. Thank you so much for your help. May I ask your name? As I took their business cards, I hesitated. They are both former colleagues of mine, so to speak. Naming myself might complicate matters. As I debated whether to reveal my identity, Michael looked intently at my face, then suddenly seemed to recognize something. Sorry if I'm mistaken, you're Shane, right? Yes, what, you knew? Of course. Oh, I'm actually a fan of yours. I've always admired you, Shane. Becoming a pilot like you has been my dream. I really look up to you. Haha, is that so? Thanks. But if you know about me, you know, right? I'm no longer Shane. Michael started to say something with a hint of sadness, glanced at his sister Claire, and then they both nodded slightly. Shane, there's something we'd like to tell you. What is it? What happened? Well, ever since you left the airline, there's been quite a stir among your peers. A stir? People are saying that maybe you were framed. I still can't believe it, that you made a piloting error. That is. Excuse me for interrupting. Just then, a man called out from a short distance away. As I looked up, the man approached, displaying a police badge. After studying each of our faces in turn, he focused on me. You're Shane, right? Yes. My name is Aaron. May I have a word with you? Aaron, the officer, had a friendly, fatherly demeanor. Still a bit wary, I nodded at him. Yes, sure. Thank you for cooperating. Just want to ask about what happened in the plane earlier, and you too, Claire and Michael. Yes. Thank you. Now, if we could start. Aaron began to ask us in detail about what had occurred on the plane. After we finished explaining everything, he nodded, saying and tilted his head thoughtfully. Just one thing I want to confirm. Shane, your current job is. I'm sorry. It's true I was a pilot, but I'd been stripped of my license. I wasn't supposed to be flying a plane. Lying wouldn't help. I decided to come clean about everything. Shane. May I speak? Claire looked at me worriedly, and Michael quickly interjected. About the incident earlier, if Shane hadn't taken over the controls, there's a high chance we would have crashed. It's my fault for being inadequate. If anyone is to blame, it's also on me. He was just a passenger on that plane and I asked him for help. He simply responded to that request. Claire added. Shane isn't at fault. If he hadn't been there to pilot the plane, who knows what would have happened to us passengers and us. All right, calm down, everyone. Aaron said, looking a bit troubled, calming us down. Then, he paused as if thinking something over, and spoke up. If what you're saying is true, it would be wrong to punish Shane. It was an emergency situation involving human lives. Don't worry about that aspect, I'll take care of it. Really? Ah, thank you. But there's one thing that bothers me. As he spoke, Aaron glanced briefly at me. Why would a pilot as skilled as Shane have his license revoked? That is. Hesitating slightly, I looked towards Michael and Claire. Both seemed to have made some resolve, nodding firmly. I nodded back slightly and turned again towards Aaron. Aaron, may I tell you something? I decided to tell Aaron about the accident. I confessed everything to Aaron about the accident and the subsequent issues with the report. And so, the report I wrote was tampered with. I see, so there's darkness in the upper echelons of every world, huh? Aaron, who had listened to my story in silence, frowned thoughtfully. Michael and Claire approached him as if clinging to hope. I knew it. So the rumors were true. Aaron, can the police just leave this matter alone? Aaron, can you investigate this matter? Well, it gets quite complicated when the upper levels are involved. From Aaron's reaction, it seemed delving deeper into this issue might indeed be dangerous. I raised my hand to Michael and Claire, urging them to calm down. Both of you, it's okay. But Aaron, if you can, please keep an eye out so this doesn't happen again. Wait, Shane. This time, Aaron interrupted, extending his arm decisively. He then nodded as if making a decision. Shane, I promise to do everything I can regarding this matter, but you'll have to cooperate with any inquiries or provide information. Of course. You two as well. While saying this, Aaron gave a slight smile, trying to lighten the mood. Afterward, as promised, Aaron actively investigated the incident. As evidence of his efforts, I, being directly involved, was questioned repeatedly by various people. As I have stated from the beginning, the accident was not due to a piloting error but was caused by a bird strike, as I had written in the report. How many times had I repeated this testimony? Though it grew tiresome towards the end, I endured it, reminding myself it was all thanks to Aaron's efforts. Finally, my claims were acknowledged, and the co-pilot at the time, Jared, who had manipulated the information, was revealed and dismissed. Thus, I was allowed to return to my role as a pilot. That night, Aaron invited me out for drinks. In a casual bar, we clinked frosty beer mugs. Ah! Beer really does taste better after a victory. Indeed. Aaron's beaming smile told the whole story. He must have gone through a lot due to this ordeal. Aaron, I'm sorry for the trouble. It must have been hard digging into the truth, right? Oh no, Shane, no need for apologies. More importantly, congratulations on getting your job back. Man, you did well. The interrogations must have been tough. Well done. It's all thanks to you, Aaron. Really, thank you. That's all right. Oh, I'm just glad we could save you this time. Wondering what he meant, I looked at Aaron's face. He had a contemplative look, as if gazing into the distance. After taking another sip of beer, Aaron began to speak slowly. I had a story from the past. I had a subordinate I particularly looked out for. A man with an upright character, just like you. And him now. He quit, just like you, he was made to take the blame for something he didn't do. That's tough. At that time, I couldn't defend him. Being part of the organization, I couldn't go against the orders from above. I still regret that moment. Aaron finished the remaining beer in his mug and turned to face me. It seems I was projecting him onto you. That's why I wanted to help this time. Sorry, did I cause you trouble? Not at all. Is that so? Then I'm glad. Aaron smiled broadly, beer foam still clinging to his lips, which made me burst out laughing involuntarily. Aaron, you've got foam on your lip. Ha, my bad. You're still drinking, right? Excuse me, another round of beers, please. Aaron called out cheerfully. That day, I spent a delightful evening drinking to my heart's content with Aaron. Everything had been settled, and it was only some time later that I finally regained my peace of mind. In the end, I didn't really get to relax much, huh? Afterward, I did go back home as planned, but I couldn't stay for long. My parents said, "You should have stayed longer," looking disappointed, but I couldn't just stay. Alright, let's go. Today is my first flight since returning as a pilot. I head to the airport with determination. In the meeting room, there was Michael, my co-pilot for today. Next to him was Claire. Both of them greet me as soon as they see me. Shane. Good morning. Good morning. Ah, good morning. You too, I'm counting on you today. Today's flight crew includes both Michael and Claire. After what had happened, I feel a sense of camaraderie with these two. Shane, thank you so much for the other day. No, I should be the one thanking you too. After that, you both spoke up for me with the police, right? Thanks to that, I could come back like this. I'm grateful. Thanks. If we could be of help to you, Shane, we're happy too. Right, Claire? Yes, that's right. Seeing their smiles reassures me. I feel validated that taking action back then was the right decision. Shane, we have a briefing now, right? I should head to my station too, so I'll excuse myself. Ah, see you later then. Claire gracefully makes her exit from the meeting room. As I watch her leave, I notice Michael grinning beside me and turn to him. What's up? Why the big smile? Hee hee, Shane, just a little secret. She was really excited to be on the same crew as you today. Ah, and of course, I am too. Ha, is that so? I'm glad to be with you too as well. Shane. Yeah? What's up? Don't you often get told you're oblivious? Eh? About what? Never mind. Ah, my sister is going to have a hard time. Michael chuckled as if amused. I didn't fully understand, but it seemed like nothing bad. Come on, let's start the briefing. I opened the tablet and prompted Michael. Since my return as a pilot, some time had passed. Since then, I had been spending a lot of my off days with Claire and Michael. After today's flight, the three of us had planned to go out for dinner. After finishing up at work and taking a shower, I headed to the restaurant where we agreed to meet. Claire and Michael had already arrived and were waiting for me at the table. Shane, over here, here. Sorry for making you wait. It's okay, we just got here too. Shane, what would you like to drink? Ah, thanks. Let me see. I peeked at the menu Claire was holding open. Across from me, Michael was watching us with a particularly big grin. What's up? Something wrong? No, it's just, you two sitting side by side like that, you look like a couple. Hey, Michael. What are you saying? That's right, Claire is beautiful and has a great personality, she wouldn't need to choose someone like me. Right, Claire? Oh, well, that's, Claire, you really need to be more assertive. Muttering to himself, Michael rummaged through his pocket. Shane, would you mind taking this? What's this, movie tickets? Yes. They were given to me, but I have a flight scheduled on this day. You're off on this day, right, Shane? Yeah, that's true but. Great. There are 2 tickets, so I thought maybe you could invite someone to go with you. Oh, aren't you off on this day too? Oh, yeah, I am. Then it's settled. Shane, please go with my sister. With that, Michael passed the movie tickets to me. Claire, is that okay? Don't you want to invite some other friends? Yes, I'd like to go with you, Shane. Is that so? Then let's go together. Thanks, Michael. You're welcome. Have fun. And, you know what I mean, right? Yeah. What's wrong, Claire? Your face is red, are you okay? I'm fine. More importantly, Shane, have you decided on your drink? Let's order quickly. Right, almost forgot. Prompted by a somewhat flustered Claire, I chose something from the menu. Michael watched us, still smiling. Later, Claire would confess her feelings to me, and that's how our relationship would begin, but that's a story for another time. Ryan, are the side dishes ready? Yes. All that's left is to add the sauce right before serving. Good. Yes, it tastes great. Well done. Thank you very much. My name is Ryan. I'm currently training at a French restaurant. I've never forgotten the atmosphere of the French restaurant we visited as a family when I was a child, which inspired me to pursue this career. As a child, the atmosphere of a formal French restaurant felt quite stiff. Yet, within its subtly thrilling atmosphere, I found warmth. The dishes, unlike hamburgers or fried chicken, had intricate decorations. Each dish presented a different flavor profile. It was like stepping into a world of paintings. I pretended to go to the bathroom and snooped around the restaurant. Everything was immaculately organized, and I was simply overwhelmed. Only the kitchen was bustling and chaotic. The party of 5 in the private room has arrived. The main dish is ready. Pull up 5 fish from the tank and prepare them. Even the most graceful swan paddles frantically under the water. These people were creating this wonderful place. Seeing this as a child thrilled me. And that's when I decided on my future dream. I wanted to become a chef so badly that I didn't go to college but instead started as an apprentice at a French restaurant. The first few years were filled with dishwashing. I wasn't even allowed to prep the ingredients. Honestly, there were times I almost gave up. But I kept at my training and eventually was trusted to handle the side dishes. The once stern-faced head chef, Walter, now praises my seasoning. I am definitely making improvement. That made me very happy and proud. I have a brother who is 3 years older. His name is Charles. We look somewhat alike, being brothers, but he chose a completely different path. He graduated from a prestigious university and now works at a well-known company. He's what you'd call an elite. Not only is he smart, but he's also popular and admired by his peers. Having such a brother was a great support. And I admired him. I used to follow him around, mimicking everything he did. He probably found me endearing. He took care of me without any complaints. But at some point, a distance grew between us. Why start working? Shouldn't you go to college? You're just running away because you don't want to study, aren't you? Because I want to become a chef. You can't train in cooking at a college, can you? Being a chef. Ryan, are you serious? How are you going to live your life without a college degree? Think about it seriously. I am thinking about it. After thinking it over, I've decided this is what I want to do. It seems Charles doesn't like the idea of me pursuing a career as a chef. Every time we meet, he persistently complains. What about your exam studies? I've told you, I'm not studying. I'm going to work. I've said it many times, but I'm going to be a chef. You're still talking in your sleep? Becoming a chef is impossible. Don't use it as an excuse to run away from exams. I'm serious about this. I wonder. You're just saying that to avoid facing reality. What do you mean you want to be a chef? Ugh. Being ridiculed for my dream was more than I could bear. Angered, I finally said what I had been thinking to him. What about you, bro? You got into a good university, but what are you going to do with that? Have you decided what you want for your future? He fell silent, as if I had hit him where it hurts. He always seemed to outdo me. There might have been a thrill in besting him this time. I had said too much. You're just jealous that I'm pursuing my dream. Mom and Dad always say, you are amazing, and you're just desperately trying to live up to that. Have you even figured out what you want to do or who you want to be? He frowned. I always spoke of becoming a chef, but he had never once talked about his own dreams. He probably knew I was right. He glared at me. His look was full of resentment and jealousy. And then he hit me with harsh words too. The reality isn't so sweet that you can just do what you want and survive. Someone who doesn't go to college can't make it in this world. Remember that. This is how our once close relationship became strained. One day, Charles brought his fiancée home to meet the family. The lady was elegant and beautiful. I had to admit, she was truly a match for Charles. My name is Sophie. She greeted us diligently. Charles had on a smug expression. Our parents seemed to like her too, making for a very successful meeting. She had met Charles through a friend's introduction. She also worked in administration at a well-known company. Though they worked nearby and started seeing each other often, they initially thought they had nothing in common. But she was very considerate and also a good cook. Charles fell hard for her, and that's how they ended up planning to marry. Are you nervous? Not at all. Please don't say weird things. Haha, relax and get comfortable. Oh, I'm fine, really. They made a painfully perfect couple. I watched the two of them interact with a dazed expression. Then, she spoke to me. You're Ryan, the younger brother, right? Ah, yes. I'm Ryan. I look forward to getting to know you. She smiled warmly. This person is going to be my sister-in-law. Thinking this made me smile. However, that good impression was shattered in an instant. Which university did you graduate from, Ryan? Our parents had just left the room. She asked this suddenly. Ah, I didn't go to college. I'm currently training to become a chef. As I responded, she visibly grimaced. Is that so? I heard you were a chef, but I never imagined you hadn't attended university. Her words were laced with thorns. Excuse me for saying this, but since Charles works at a famous company, I assumed you also attended a prestigious university. To think you only finished high school. There's quite a difference between the brothers, isn't there? She gave a meaningful laugh. It was clear she looked down on me. But I am pursuing my dream, and I have skills recognized by the head chef, at least. The shift from a good impression to this was too great. She might be a wolf in sheep's clothing, despite her demure appearance. I couldn't hide my irritation and retorted. Are you with Charles because he graduated from college and works at a famous company? What are you saying, Ryan? Before she could react, Charles scolded me. Ryan, do you see? This is the common perception. These days, people look down on those who only finish high school. If it bothers you so much, why don't you quit being a chef and go to college now? If I've offended you, I apologize. Like Charles said, I was just surprised. Because, well, just high school, you know. Sophie smiled slightly in apology. Her insincere expression was extremely unpleasant. Ryan, you're just doing what you want, so your life must be easy, right? Really? If only everyone could just live doing what they love, how wonderful that would be. The two of them looked at me and laughed mockingly. A few days after Charles introduced his fiancée. Is that Sophie? She came as a guest to the French restaurant where I was training. She was accompanied by an unfamiliar man. The man's appearance was not exactly respectable. He looked like the type who might throw a punch if you bumped into him on the street. Feeling I shouldn't be seen, I quickly hid and watched what was happening. So, when will it be? The deadline is next month, you know? You know what happens if it passes. The interest will just keep increasing. I understand. Well, with your looks, you could probably become popular at a nightclub. The man's sleazy laughter echoed. No way. I was stunned to learn her secret. From what I overheard, it seems she has debts. And they appear to be substantial. Does Charles know about this? As I wondered, a shocking statement reached my ears. Don't worry, I have a way to pay it back. My fiancé earns a lot and is a yes man. I plan to sweet-talk him into arranging the money. You're planning to exploit your fiancé? Poor guy. It's my prerogative how I gather the money, isn't it? Well, that's true. My apologies. My heart nearly burst. I had sensed something off about her, but this was beyond my worst suspicions. Without any hint of remorse, she openly discussed her plan to extract money from Charles with this man. So please, stay away from me. I have a wedding at the end of the month. Someone like you showing up could ruin everything. Indeed, that would be problematic. Thank you for your cooperation. Sophie coldly smiled and left the restaurant without placing an order. Scary woman. The man's involuntary comment made sense. Her true nature was indeed that of a scary woman. After much deliberation, I decided to inform Charles. Our relationship wasn't the best, and I had no obligation to help him, but I couldn't just stand by and let him be deceived. However, as expected, he was reluctant to believe me. You're just jealous, aren't you? Trying to mess up my marriage, huh? Why would I do something like that? What do I gain from lying about this? I've never seen her act the way you described. How can you expect me to believe this? That's what I've been trying to tell you, Charles. You're being used. You should call off the wedding and break up with her now. Oh. And if you doubt it that much, come to the restaurant. She and that guy should be on the security camera. Being informed about the evidence, he had to believe it. I could hear his teeth gritting. It's really true, isn't it? That's what I've been trying to tell you. It was a harsh truth. I stated it plainly. Sophie, that woman. She was deceiving me. His anger was palpable even through the phone. It felt like he might crush his phone from the sheer force of his fury. Cautiously, I asked him, "What are you going to do? Break up with her?" I hate to say it, but Sophie plans to bleed you dry. If you're going to break up, you need to handle it carefully. Ugh. I couldn't help but feel sympathy for his situation. However, I hoped he wouldn't resort to rough tactics. Behind her were some dangerous people. As I pondered this, Charles surprisingly asked me to keep it between us. Hey, Ryan. Can we keep this just between the two of us? Huh? You mean forgive her? I'm going to make her regret trying to use me. I need a little time to plan. All right. After ending the call, I sighed. She's not someone to be taken lightly. The image of her in the restaurant flashed through my mind. I didn't know what Charles was planning, but they continued to prepare for the wedding as if nothing was amiss. Meanwhile, I was constantly worried. Doesn't he believe me? Despite my suspicions, there were no signs of trouble between them. The wedding was now only a day away. Confused by Charles's unreadable intentions, I was startled when she suddenly spoke to me. What's going on? Did I startle you? No, just lost in thought. I laughed it off. However, she seemed indifferent to my discomfort and bluntly stated her business. I hope this won't upset you, but are you attending the wedding, Ryan? Huh. If you do attend, please make sure no one finds out you're just a high school graduate. Many people from Charles's company will be there, as well as my relatives and colleagues. So please, do be careful. We wouldn't want the wedding to be spoiled. Not content with just squeezing money out of Charles, she now aimed to crush my pride as well. My patience snapped. Then I'll just decline to attend the wedding. That should put you at ease, right? I delivered the sarcasm as sharply as I could. However, she simply clapped her hands and said cheerily, "That would be helpful, thank you." Watching her leave with a satisfied look on her face filled me with a helpless anger. On the day of the wedding, although I had promised her I wouldn't attend, Charles pleaded for me to come, so I reluctantly agreed to participate. When she saw me at the venue, contrary to our agreement, she glared at me with a look of betrayal, but I simply ignored her. The ceremony concluded without any issues. Then we moved to the reception hall. As Sophie had warned, the venue was crowded with many guests. Probably close to 100. It was fitting for Charles as an elite businessman. While thinking this, I took my seat among our relatives. Just as I was starting to feel weary of the tedious congratulatory speeches, the toast was finally given, allowing us to start eating. Everyone was about to dig into the cuisine of the upscale hotel, wondering about its quality, when a voice interrupted. Excuse me, please, I need a moment. There's something I must share with everyone. The voice belonged to Charles. As we faced yet another delay, amidst the grumbling crowd, he continued. I have prepared a slideshow. Please watch. Pointing to a huge screen set up at the back of the hall, he signaled the staff, please go ahead. Then, it appeared. What? What is this? Isn't that Sophie? Who's that shady-looking guy next to her? Does Sophie have dealings with shady people? What's going on? An affair? Cheating? The venue buzzed with shock as they viewed the images on the slide. It showed Sophie with the same man I had seen her with at the restaurant. This woman in the images is undoubtedly her, Sophie, Charles declared. The murmurs grew louder. Confused, embarrassed, and agitated, Sophie shouted, "What is this? What does this mean?" She reached out frantically, trying to grab the microphone from Charles, but she couldn't reach it. Meanwhile, he ignored her and stepped in front of the slides. I accidentally discovered that Sophie was associating with this unsavory man. Upon investigating, I found out that she has debts of $100,000. As you might guess, the man is involved in illegal lending. He pointed to the man in the slide and added, $100,000. Sophie, why? But that's not all. She was scheming to saddle me with her debts. Charles then grabbed documents he had hidden behind the screen, held them high, and then scattered them across the floor. Several reports slid smoothly across the surface, spreading out for all to see. Detective agency's findings. What? This can't be true. Let me see that. The venue turned into absolute chaos. Sophie was nearly hysterical. But as they say, you reap what you sow. Inside, I felt a vindictive satisfaction. And in the midst of this turmoil, Charles once again took the microphone. What she was trying to do could be considered marriage fraud. However, I want to forgive her, he declared. His words brought everyone to a halt. I stared at him in disbelief. Yet he was not joking. His demeanor was serious. I want to forgive Sophie, Charles repeated once again. His tone had completely changed from before, becoming very gentle. The venue fell silent. He looked straight at Sophie and spoke to her. I can't forgive the despicable act of trying to push the debt onto me. But, Sophie, I know why you ended up with a debt of $100,000. Charles took out a photo from his pocket. What? What did he take out? Everyone looked at his hands. As if anticipating this, the screen showed the cute exterior of a cake shop. Sophie, before you joined your current company, you ran a cake shop, right? This shop, right? You worked hard to become a pastry chef and finally managed to own a shop, didn't you? But it didn't go well, and the business failed. You ended up with a debt of $100,000. It must have been tough. Not just financially, but mentally too. But you didn't want to inconvenience the staff who worked with you, so you used your own money to pay 3 months' salary to all the staff. And that's not all. You also looked for a new job for them. It's not something you can do when you're struggling with a shattered dream and a debt of $100,000. He continued speaking while returning to the stage where she was. The real you is such a wonderful person who can be so kind to others. Isn't that right? It was a truth I didn't know. After receiving my report, Charles desperately investigated with the help of experts. He couldn't believe that someone would do something like this without reason. You know, I've always lived my life worrying about what others think. I've been pretending to be a good kid even though I felt stifled. That's why I thought I had to go to a good university and get a good job. He looked away from her and looked at me. That's why I envied Ryan so much. He pursued his dreams. I envied him for being able to freely pursue his dreams. Charles. It was some time ago, right? You told me, you envy me for pursuing my dreams, right? You were right. His face expressed regret. I must have been awful. I was jealous of Sophie too. She must have been working hard every day to pursue her dream, just like Ryan. And then she must have despaired when things didn't go well. And she must have thought of something like this, right? He returned to her side and gently wiped away her overflowing tears. Then, as if proposing, he knelt down, took her hand, and said, I've decided something in my heart because of this incident. I've been neglecting my own will while worrying about what others think. But from now on, I want to value my own will. Like Ryan and the old Sophie. So, Sophie, I will take on your debt willingly. And I want to support you in pursuing your dream of becoming a pastry chef again. After the tumultuous wedding reception, Charles and Sophie apologized to me for mocking my education. I'm really sorry about the educational background thing. I said terrible things. It's okay, really. I was jealous of you too. I envied you for pursuing your dreams, shining so brightly. I'm really sorry. I really do support your dream. I have to apologize properly too. Ryan, I'm sorry for everything. I'm looking forward to you becoming a chef. Charles is indeed a strong ally for me. And now my sister-in-law has joined too. I'll become the best chef ever. I answered proudly. Keep your passport deep in your bag. I know, geez, just like Dad. I'm worried. And make sure you're near the gate 20 minutes early. If you're so worried, why don't you come with Sophie? I have things to do here. While I'm honing my skills as a pastry chef, Charles will work hard in the US and prepare to open a new shop. Wow, are you showing off your good relationship? Hee. Charles paid off her debt in full. Moreover, he even managed to finance her study abroad in Paris to fulfill her dream of becoming a pastry chef. Oh, the security gate is open. Sophie, don't get on the wrong plane. Geez, Charles. I'm sorry. Conversations like this will be put on hold for a while. It feels lonely to think about it. I shouted to her as she passed through the security gate. Chef or pastry chef, it's a competition to see who succeeds first, Sophie. She showed her best smile and nodded vigorously.
You told me to push it until I drop, didn't you? Now because of you, my credibility is in shambles. The shouts of factory manager, Alex, echoed through the area. I told them from the start that the deadline was impossible to meet, but they insisted on going through with it anyway. I swallowed the words that were on the tip of my tongue and just listened silently to the conversation. Didn't I tell you before? If we don't meet the deadline, you'd be responsible, he said. I think I remember him saying something like that. Alex's angry expression suddenly turned into a smile as he said, You're fired as of today. We don't need old-timers who tarnish the company's reputation.
Fired? That's just ridiculous.
All decisions are mine to make. You caused this mess, so don't make excuses. To silence me, Alex slammed his fist on the desk with force. I was prepared to take responsibility, but being fired was completely unexpected. I begged for mercy, but there was no changing Alex's mind. Crushed by a sense of despair, I headed to bid farewell to my subordinates, unaware that yet another shocking event awaited me. My name is Tyler. I was hired mid-career at a well-known car manufacturing plant. Although I'm nearing retirement, I believe I'm as capable as the younger employees. My wife, Emily, is always concerned about me not overdoing it, but so far, my health has been fine. We were never blessed with children, but our relationship is strong. We are known as a loving couple in our neighborhood. Though we've been married for a good number of years, it hasn't been without its challenges. We've had countless disagreements over the years. When the company I worked for went bankrupt due to poor performance, it was a particularly anxious time. Reflecting on all the hardships we've overcome, I am truly grateful to have married Emily. Many of my peers complain about their wives, and hearing them makes me realize how fortunate I am. Currently, I hold the position of department head at work, though deep down I'm not satisfied. I earn more than enough, but being ambitious, I've always aspired for more. However, the company's policy requires a college degree for anyone to become a factory manager. Since my highest level of education is a high school diploma, I didn't meet the criteria. It's a frustrating rule, but there's nothing I can do about it. While my official title is department head, I am confident that I perform better than anyone else. In fact, I am often relied upon not just by my subordinates but by the factory manager as well. I handle scheduling and consultations on a daily basis, practically acting as if I were the factory manager myself. I have also earned the trust of factory managers from our client companies through my work. My life, both at home and work, has been fulfilling, and I had no significant complaints until now. This time, it has been decided that the current factory manager will retire upon reaching the mandatory retirement age. Consequently, a new factory manager will be appointed. His name is Alex. He is the son of the company president, and quite young. Although he graduated from a prestigious university, he lacked any substantial experience in manufacturing. His employment was clearly a case of nepotism. Possibly due to his graduation from a top university, Alex's pride is as high as Everest. He is an absolute egotist who looks down on everyone, including me, with utter disdain. Despite having no real-world experience as a professional, he refuses to listen to anyone else's opinions. People like you with a low education can't compare to someone like me from a top university. It was how he introduced himself at first. I was somewhat aware of the dangers of having an incompetent, prideful boss. But Alex's arrogance was beyond anything I could have imagined, making me wonder how such people even exist in this world. When a near retiree like you is just a department head, and a young guy like me is the factory manager, it really shows how important education is, he remarked when I greeted him. Alex only viewed the workers below him as mere pawns. Without proper consultations with others, he took on projects from major clients. You might think that in itself isn't a bad thing, but the problem was the deadlines. No matter how I calculated, even if we worked without days off, we couldn't meet them. Normally, we should undertake work with more leeway, but Alex hadn't considered any of that. Alex, this deadline is really unreasonable. There's no way we can meet it, I said. What? Are you criticizing the job I managed to get for us? Despite my advising Alex that it was utterly impossible, his displeasure was evident. Of course, I wasn't just nitpicking. Based on the daily production capacity of the machines and the inspection speed of the workers, all the data shows that it's impossible to meet the deadlines Alex has set. No matter how much I explained, Alex just wouldn't understand. Stop lining up excuses with this based on past data nonsense, he snapped. It's not like that. It's truly impossible, I insisted. This is just because you've all been slacking off. Act like you're robots, not humans, and work, he said dismissively. Facing Alex, who casually made outrageous demands, I felt a sense of despair. This was no longer about educational background. It was a matter of humanity. Despite my earnest attempts to persuade him, it all ended in vain. I had no choice but to do what was possible. I sought help from subcontractor factories and reluctantly asked my team to work overtime. I was filled with regret. The subcontractors and my team, knowing it was my request, willingly accepted. I was thankful for their generosity. Of course, I also tried my best to meet the deadline, working diligently. Feeling it unfair to ask my team to bear all the hardship, I stayed back and worked alone outside of working hours. Alex seemed indifferent even seeing this effort. Don't you dare miss the deadline I set, or you won't be forgiven, he said cheerily by my side as I worked silently. There was no notion of him helping out. Despite my repeated requests, he refused them all. Are you asking me, a graduate from a top university, to do menial machine work? He scoffed. Why is that considered menial? That's just prejudice, I argued. Don't get all red-faced just because I'm stating facts, he mocked. We really need more hands here, I explained. Stop relying on me, the factory manager, like that. It's pathetic for an old man near retirement to act this way, Alex said, laughing as he walked away. Dealing with him felt like a waste of energy. I gave up on getting angry or having expectations and focused solely on my work. I came home late into the night, often after the date had changed. I tried to maintain a smile so as not to worry my wife, Emily, but as one might expect from a spouse of many years, she could still sense the fatigue I couldn't completely hide from my expression.
Hey, you've been looking really busy lately, are you okay? She asked.
Just some unreasonable demands from the new factory manager. I'm okay, I assured her, though I seldom complained about work to Emily. I didn't want to worry her too much. However, seeing the fatigue I couldn't conceal, she couldn't help but care. We faced tough times before. I'll get through this with some grit, I said, mixing in a bit of bravado as I made a small fist pump. Emily looked unconvinced, but sighed and said, just don't overdo it. You're not young anymore. I understood the difference between doing one's best and overdoing it. Right now, I was definitely overdoing it. If I were merely doing my best, Emily wouldn't be this worried. Despite racking my brain, there was no sign that Alex would do anything about the deadline. In the midst of continuous grueling work, it was clear that my subordinates were accumulating fatigue. Noticing a clear drop in work efficiency, I decided to end the workday at noon. Pushing them any harder would inevitably lead to someone collapsing. It was just a matter of time. As expected, when I explained this to Alex, he exploded in anger. What? Working until you collapse is the basic duty of a field worker. There's no such rule, and I wished he wouldn't make such arbitrary statements.
We can't go on like this. We are not robots, I asserted.
No matter how much Alex yelled at me, I was determined to protect my team. I thought he wouldn't agree, but his response was unexpected. Well, even if we don't meet the deadline, it won't be my fault, he said, smirking as if he'd come up with a cunning plan. If we don't make it, it'll just be your responsibility to bear. Fine, I'll specially allow you to end work at noon, he conceded. Though his reasoning was unsatisfactory, my priority was to give my subordinates a break. I informed everyone that we would end the workday at noon and sent them home. No job is more important than health. After sending off my subordinates, I continued working alone. The fatigue had accumulated to a point where sleep alone wouldn't cure it. Emily, as always, was the one who witnessed my state up close. Trying to alleviate my exhaustion, she went out of her way for me. One day when I came home, she had prepared my favorite dishes and some alcohol, waiting for me. Seeing the lavish dinner table, I wondered if it was some sort of anniversary.
You've been really tired from work recently, haven't you? I thought I'd do something special for you, she said.
Emily, thank you. I managed to say that, moved by her thoughtfulness. Holding back tears, I reached for the food laid out on the table. Fried chicken, steak, Caesar salad, and creamy soup. Each dish was a favorite of mine. Have a good drink tonight, she urged. I don't usually drink much, but I figured tonight was an exception. I downed the whiskey Emily poured with gusto. Perhaps the alcohol loosened my tongue. I found myself unexpectedly venting about work, something I don't usually do. Most of my complaints were about Alex, the new factory manager. I spoke about the impossible deadlines he set, his high-handed speech, and his attitude. Driven by the alcohol, I let out all my grievances. Emily silently listened to my endless rant. When I finally paused, she asked, "What's his name?" "Alex, Alex Barker," I replied. "Alex Barker." Emily murmured, her expression thoughtful as she repeated the factory manager's name. I wondered what she was thinking, but decided to let it go, and took another drink. Grateful for my wife's care, I resolved anew to do my best at work. Yet, despite our best efforts, we couldn't meet Alex's deadline. The delivery was significantly delayed. We had done everything we could. If that wasn't enough, there was nothing more to be said, as both the employees and I had given our all. Still, even with that understanding, Alex was not satisfied. I was summoned by Alex and subjected to a barrage of abuse. You told me to keep going until you collapsed, didn't you? Now because of you, my trustworthiness is plummeting. Despite me saying from the beginning that it was impossible, they went ahead anyway. I swallowed the words that almost slipped out and silently listened to Alex's rant. Didn't I tell you before? If we don't meet the deadline, you'd be the one to take the responsibility, he said. I think I recall him saying something like that. From an angry expression, Alex suddenly switched to a smile and said, "You're fired as of today. We don't need old-timers who damage the company's reputation." Fired, that's ridiculous. All the decision-making power is mine. The root cause is your fault, so don't make excuses. To silence me, Alex forcefully slammed his desk. I was prepared to take responsibility, but being fired was beyond unexpected. I pleaded for mercy, but there was no changing Alex's mind. I should say goodbye to my subordinates before I leave. I packed up my belongings and reported to everyone at the site that I had been fired. To my surprise, the employees all showed relieved smiles. And unbelievably, they even said, "It's good that Tyler got fired." I was so shocked I couldn't even respond. I understand why Alex might be pleased, but my subordinates being happy about my departure. But on reflection, maybe it's understandable. They must see it as retribution for making them take on unreasonable work at Alex's command. I'm truly sorry for all the hardship I've caused, I said, deeply remorseful. As I was speaking, Alex approached. Does he still have more to say? Bracing myself, he began to speak unexpectedly. Don't leave yet, you're coming with me to meet with a client. What? We're going to apologize for this mess. You're the main cause of this mess, after all. Having my last task be an apology felt unsettling, but there was no choice. According to Alex, the client's CEO, Mr. Johnson, wanted to speak with me. Wondering what he wanted to discuss, I got into the car Alex was driving.
Useless old man, make sure you apologize sincerely.
Alex made irritating remarks as he drove, and I stared out the window in discomfort. After about an hour's drive, we arrived at the client's office and headed to the CEO's office. Though I was not convinced, it was a fact that we had missed the deadline. Reluctantly, I began to apologize. But the CEO of the large company, Mr. Johnson, hurriedly stopped me. Hey, there's no need for that. He stopped me, but Alex seemed unsatisfied. He clicked his tongue in a volume just on the edge of audibility. Mr. Johnson, please don't coddle him, Alex said. What do you mean?
The responsibility for this mess lies entirely with this man, Tyler.
Is that true? Yes, it is. Come on, useless old man, apologize. Alex seemed almost delighted, as if there was nothing more enjoyable in the world. By the way, I've already fired him, so you can rest assured. Is that so? It's good that Tyler got fired. Right, the company only gets worse with him around. Now, we can scout him to our company without any reservations. Wait, what? At Mr. Johnson's comment, Alex froze in an instant. Scout him? This old man who's close to retirement. Alex, you're young, so you might not know this. Let me explain. What are you talking about? I started from the ground up to become a CEO, and during my early days, Tyler was a great help to me. I remembered those times fondly. We used to go out for drinks quite often, though it's been less frequent these days. Moreover, regarding this issue, I'm not upset. What? But we missed the deadline. I knew the terms you proposed were unrealistic. I've been monitoring the progress with that understanding. That's... Actually, I'm impressed by how well you managed under these constraints. Mr. Johnson said, showing me a smile. It turned out, I was called in not just to be scouted, but also to be thanked. Surrounded by these unexpected developments, I returned home feeling bewildered. While having dinner with Emily, I shared today's events. Tomorrow, I think I'll go back to the company I was fired from to say goodbye properly. Didn't you already do that? It was rushed because I was called to the client's office. I want to say farewell properly. Then, as your wife, I'd like to come too. Why? That's the workplace where you've spent many years. I really want to go. I could see something like determination in Emily's eyes. It was rare for her to insist so strongly, given her usually reserved nature. All right, if you say so. Thank you. I appreciate it. The next day, I bought some small gifts at the department store before heading to the company. I handed out these gifts to each of my subordinates while saying my goodbyes. Unexpectedly, most of them were teary-eyed. They had said it was good that I was fired, yet here they were, crying. Curious, I couldn't help but ask what this was all about. Then, I heard an unexpected reason from one of my subordinates. It turns out they had been worried about me all along. They were distressed seeing me being manipulated by Alex, unable to become the factory manager, and just being used for his own ends. They believed that I could succeed in any company. Despite being fired, they thought it was for the best that I had left. They were actually happy to see me freed from an unfair and unreasonable environment. Feeling relieved that they hadn't hated me, Emily and I shared a moment of reassurance. After finishing my farewells to the team, Emily and I headed to see the factory manager, Alex. Alex, this is my wife, Emily. Alex, who had been fiddling with his phone, glanced up at Emily's face. At that moment, his face went pale. It's been a while, Alex, since that arranged meeting, right? What? Oh, you're his wife. Alex stammered, unable to hide his disturbance. I had learned yesterday that Emily knew Alex. In fact, Emily is the daughter of a big company's CEO. There's quite an age gap between us. Before we married, Emily had been set up in a matchmaking meeting with the son of a subcontractor company's president. It was Alex. However, Alex has always been prideful and arrogant. His overbearing attitude and his derogatory remarks about Emily's appearance repeatedly led, quite naturally, to the cancellation of their arranged marriage. Alex had been severely scolded by his father, but his attitude never improved. He would never have imagined that Emily would marry me. If it became known that he had been harassing the husband of a major company CEO's daughter, Alex's position would become precarious. I apologize for all the disrespect shown to your husband. Alex apologized profusely. But such actions had no impact. I overlooked your rude behavior during our meeting, but I cannot overlook the hurt you've caused to someone important to me. Please, forgive me. I will report this to my father. No. Anything but that. I'll do anything. Alex tried to plead, but it was in vain. Emily, furious, left the scene immediately. It was the first time I had seen my wife so angry. I was surprised, but even more so, I was pleased. Because her anger stemmed from someone hurting her husband. Upon returning home, Emily immediately reported everything to her father, CEO, Mr. Harrison. All of Alex's past behaviors came to light. The information spread, eventually reaching Alex's father and my former boss, President, Mr. Parker. Alex was not only severely scolded but also fired. Having previously lived comfortably under his father's patronage, he now lost that, too. Without a job, he couldn't afford his rent or living expenses and was kicked out of his apartment. Despite trying to find a new job, his arrogant nature remained unchanged, leading to repeated rejections at interviews. Having lost both his job and his place to live, he apparently ended up living on the streets. The life of a former CEO's son turned street dweller is the ultimate humiliation, and he reportedly sleeps every night with tears of frustration. Why must I, a graduate of a top university, end up like this? It's a fitting end for someone who treated people like tools and handled them carelessly. Meanwhile, I started working at a company that had scouted me from my previous dealings. Here, unlike my former company, a college degree is not necessary for advancement. Using my past experience, I quickly rose to become a factory manager. I was entrusted with one of the major company's factories, and I successfully earned trust at my new workplace. Every day is enjoyable, and even my wife can see how happy I am. I'm really glad to see you so happy, Emily said with a genuinely joyful smile. Seeing her smile, I vowed to work even harder. Is there anyone with a medical background on board? We need to hurry, an elderly person needs help. I used to be a doctor, I said, raising my hand. Please help us, urged by a beautiful flight attendant, I proceeded to the front of the plane. This is the story of a once brilliant surgeon who was ousted from the medical world and encountered a crisis while returning to his rural hometown by plane. My name is Eugene. I was a doctor until just the other day. I was a neurosurgeon at a university hospital, and since my residency, I was favored by the professor, which allowed me to accompany him to conferences even ahead of other senior doctors. Soon after, a paper I presented at a conference was recognized, and at the age of 29, I was hailed as a genius neurosurgeon. As my fame increased from TV appearances and writing magazine columns, my clinic became so popular that there was a 2-month wait for an appointment. The hospital's policy was that while general appointments took 2 months, celebrities and the like were given priority in treatment. I primarily cared for patients in VIP private rooms, alongside my mentor and chief physician, Dr. Maxwell. My smooth career began to derail after Dr. Maxwell retired. Dr. Maxwell was a significant figure within the hospital's power dynamics, having been a powerful ally as a friend of the hospital director, Dr. Smith. Under Dr. Maxwell's protection, all I had to think about was maximizing my skills. After his retirement, the position of head of neurology was to be filled by an external hire, and it remained vacant for a while. Already holding the title of associate professor, I was temporarily assigned as the acting head, representing the department and coordinating with other medical divisions. There were many in the hospital who did not take kindly to my presence. Without Dr. Maxwell's backing, I found myself at the forefront of troublesome office politics. The especially problematic person was Dr. Vincent, the deputy director and head of surgery, who was notoriously harsh and often clashed with me. Despite this, since Dr. Vincent also primarily handled VIP cases, we had to cooperate frequently. At that time, Dr. Vincent was the primary physician for a famous singer, whose hospitalization itself was newsworthy. One day, I participated in a pre-surgical conference for this patient. The surgery would be performed by Dr. Vincent, of course, but there was a disagreement between my diagnosis and his. Despite repeatedly presenting the imaging and explaining, my views were dismissed, and none of the other doctors dared to contradict Dr. Vincent. Eventually, Dr. Vincent decided my diagnosis was wrong and proceeded with a different treatment. The patient did not survive. It was clear that the cause was Dr. Vincent's misdiagnosis and surgical error. However, he shifted all the blame onto me. I was blamed for the patient's death due to my supposed misdiagnosis. In this hospital, going against Dr. Vincent meant not being able to survive. Although a few nurses and pharmacists spoke out in my defense, they were dismissed as a warning to others. No doctor was willing to speak the truth, and I was left to take the fall alone, resulting in my departure from the hospital. My medical error, sensationalized by the media, effectively ended my future as a doctor. Disgusted with the world of medicine and losing my passion for saving lives, I decided to return to my rural hometown to take over the family inn. It's about a 2-hour flight to my hometown. Normally, I would have flown first class, but this time I bought an economy class ticket and waited for boarding, and then in the lounge, which was noisy due to first-class passengers. A younger men were loudly celebrating with a few older men. Other passengers frowned at their unrefined behavior, but they continued their loud conversations, which were clearly audible. Derek is the main guest at tomorrow's conference. It's unprecedented for someone his age to be a professor. From such conversations, it was evident. Some doctors and their entourage were heading to a conference. The doctor, clearly younger than the others, was being flattered and acting superior. Well, it's a world I no longer belong to. Once on the plane, I started to read a book. After takeoff, it wasn't long before there was a commotion up front. Apparently, there was a medical emergency in first class. Sure enough, the doctors from the lounge were also on the same flight. There was no role for me to play. I realize that I'm thinking about this. I've quit being a doctor, I'm just an ordinary person now. Just when I thought it had quieted down, a flight attendant rushed in from first class in a fluster. "Is there a doctor on board?" It was a phrase I often heard during my active days. There were doctors headed to a conference in first class. From the content of their pompous conversation, I guessed they were from a major hospital. Had they not attended to the patient? Excuse me, aren't there some doctors from a hospital in first class? When I raised my hand and called out to the frantic flight attendant, she looked at me as if grasping at straws. "Are you a doctor? Could you please help us?" My gesture caused a misunderstanding, but I was curious why those doctors hadn't responded, so I followed the attendant without clearing up the confusion. Upon reaching first class, it was chaotic. A group of doctors from the lounge before boarding were surrounding an elderly couple, attempting to administer treatment. "What should we do, Derek? It's not subsiding," said a man anxiously observing the patient, addressing the youngest and most authoritative among them. The elderly man was having a seizure and had lost consciousness. "Ma'am, is this the first time your husband has had an epileptic seizure?" Derek, the man addressed as such, spoke to the woman who was pale and holding her husband's hand. "Epilepsy? This is the first I've heard of it. Is my husband having an epileptic seizure?" These symptoms are definite. While individual reactions may vary, they should stabilize soon. It's important to keep him lying on his side to monitor his condition. Your husband is lucky to have me treating him. His entourage nodded in agreement. After all, Derek is the next chairman of the American Neurosurgical Society. He's an authority in this field. Being on this plane was a stroke of luck. They praised Derek in chorus. As I was led through this exchange by the flight attendant, I found myself standing before the patient. Despite having quit medicine, the patient's symptoms and possible diagnosis instantly came to mind. "Ma'am, was your husband taking any medication for high blood pressure?" "Yes, my husband has high blood pressure and regularly receives medication for it," the wife responded to my inquiry. Hearing this, I directed Derek and his group. "This is a case of hyponatremia. Derek, administer saline immediately." Since I had quit medicine, I no longer carried emergency medical supplies as I used to. "What? Who do you think you are giving orders to? Derek isn't someone that a doctor who can only afford economy class should be talking to." His group confronted me aggressively. Anyone, please prepare an IV quickly. Severe hyponatremia can closely mimic epileptic seizures. It's common knowledge in neurology. Derek's entourage started murmuring among themselves. "Is Derek's diagnosis incorrect? That can't be." They exchanged confused glances. Meanwhile, the man's seizures started again. If a respected doctor lets a patient die on a plane, he might as well be erased from the medical society, I said firmly. One of the entourage finally called a nurse from economy class, and they began administering an IV to the patient. "You guys, do whatever you want." Everyone fell silent, watching Derek's reactions. After the plane landed, I was urged to accompany the patient to the ambulance waiting on the tarmac. I hesitated honestly. It's such a rural place. Nobody here knows me. I reassured myself and was about to board the ambulance when Derek yelled, "Know your place, bumpkin, you've embarrassed me." At the hospital, I explained the situation to the doctor and reported the treatment and medication administered. Thanks to the appropriate measures, the patient will be able to go home soon. "By the way, Dr. Thumpson, which hospital do you work at?" The doctor praised my intervention and asked. "No, I used to run a clinic, but I closed it down and am on my way back to my hometown." I brushed it off with a casual lie. The doctor accepted it easily, saying, "It's a shame for someone as skilled as you." After ensuring the man was stable, I silently left the hospital. I felt like I recognized the patient's face somehow, but I quickly forgot about it as I hurried back to my family home. When I arrived, my parents and my brother and his wife, who help run the family inn, all welcomed me. Despite what had been said on TV, no one mentioned it. They simply accepted me back. It's getting tougher to manage as we get older, so it's really helpful that you're here to assist, Eugene, my parents remarked. "I'll train you thoroughly." True to their word, I started helping out with the inn the very next day. Though the work was entirely different from what I had done as a doctor, it was refreshingly challenging. "Eugene, you can't be so condescending. This is hospitality," my brother unexpectedly advised me. I didn't intend to be, but perhaps that's how I appeared. And the work at the inn starts early. Preparing breakfast, seeing off guests, cleaning rooms, welcoming new guests, and preparing dinner. The list of tasks was endless. "Harder than being a doctor, huh?" my father commented, to which I could only nod. By the end of each day, I was exhausted and fell asleep the moment I hit the bed, which spared me the time to dwell on my hospital days. My days passed in a blur. Just when I was getting used to the routine and starting to find my rhythm, a woman came to stay at the inn. "What's the name on the reservation?" The female guest was strikingly beautiful, almost otherworldly. I thought I had seen her face before, perhaps she was an actress or model. While I processed her check-in, she introduced herself. "My name is Sophia." I didn't recognize the name, unfortunately. "I'll take your luggage for you," I offered as I smoothly completed the check-in and led her to her room. Dinner is served in the dining hall from 5 to 9 p.m., and then, as I was about to leave the room after explaining everything, she stopped me. "Don't you remember me?" I paused and turned to look at her. Where had we met? Such a beautiful face should be unforgettable. "You were on that plane, the one you helped the man." "Ah." I instinctively pointed at her with a smile. "You were the flight attendant on that plane." I quickly withdrew my finger, embarrassed. "I apologize for the bluntness. I was just so surprised." She didn't seem offended, continuing with a smile. "Actually, the man you helped was my grandfather." I was surprised again but tried to remain composed as I chose my words carefully. "Is that so? How is he doing now?" "Thanks to you, he's as lively as ever. It turns out it was hyponatremia caused by his blood pressure medication, just as you diagnosed. He had gotten a stronger prescription because he was flying." Sophia spoke brightly, her expression changing rapidly, showing a different side from when she was a flight attendant. She had often stayed with her grandparents as a child because her parents were busy, and she grew quite attached to them. Her grandfather was especially fond of her, and she herself was a grandfatherly child. The doctors in first class at that time seemed too embarrassed in front of their subordinates to back down, It's a real problem if they misdiagnose like that, especially when it could be life-threatening. It was really fortunate that a doctor like you happened to be on the same flight, she said. Being stared at so directly and thanked made me feel ticklish inside. It was just by chance. Plus, I've already quit being a doctor. Now I'm helping out at this inn. Upon hearing that I had quit being a doctor, Sophia looked a bit disappointed, but she didn't ask anything more about it. So, you've changed careers. Even though this job looks stuff, you seem to enjoy it, she said. Her comment surprised me. Indeed, getting thanked by guests here felt different from when I was a doctor, and I genuinely appreciated it. Maybe this job suits me better. Yes, I enjoy this job. It offers a different kind of fulfillment from being a doctor. I answered sincerely. Sophia, who was here on her precious vacation amidst a busy work schedule, was staying for 3 nights and 4 days. Although there aren't many tourist spots around here to visit for 3 nights, Sophia seemed to enjoy the places I suggested on the first and second days. When she returned, she excitedly reported where she went and what happened. You must have seen many places abroad, I said. She shook her head. There's still a lot to see domestically. Plus, traveling for leisure feels completely different from traveling for work, she explained. I listened to her, pondering her perspective. On the last day of her stay, a local festival took place. I hadn't known about it, but it seems it's an annual event that both locals and tourists look forward to. Oh, haven't you been to the festival yet? You can go after you finish preparing dinner. That beautiful guest, she's your acquaintance, right? Why don't you invite her? My mother suggested with a meaningful smile. She and I aren't like that, I protested. Well, surely a beauty like her is out of your league, she teased. I couldn't deny that. Eventually, after dinner that day, I decided to approach Sophia as she was heading from the dining hall to her room. There's a festival nearby today. It's an annual event. I haven't been myself, so if you'd like, we could take a stroll there, I suggested, though it sounded like an excuse even to me. However, Sophia happily accepted the invitation. We agreed to meet at the entrance after dinner. I love the atmosphere of festivals. I used to go a lot with my grandfather when I was a kid, she shared, clearly looking forward to it. Unexpectedly excited, we walked side by side. Her beauty attracted attention. Men and women alike turned to look at her, but she didn't seem to care and walked on swiftly. Watching her excitedly interact with the ordinary stalls at the festival, I started to have fun too. Various events were taking place at the central square, and she seemed to enjoy them thoroughly. Thank you for today. I had a lot of fun, she said on our way back, looking content. It's a nice place, isn't it? I can see why you'd want to come back, I replied, feeling a bit guilty under a straightforward gaze. I was blamed for a medical mistake and had to quit being a doctor. Actually, I wanted to continue practicing medicine, but the incident blew up so much that there's nowhere in this field that would hire me now. Of course, I find this work at the inn fulfilling too, I confided. Sophia listened intently. So, if there was a chance, you'd want to work as a doctor again? Surprisingly honest, I found myself replying. Yes, if there was a place that would accept me. I see. I think you helping patients as a doctor and working hard to create good memories for guests here at the inn, both are wonderful. She smiled satisfactorily. Thank you, I managed to say, overwhelmed by the compliment. Feeling like I had no value beyond being a doctor, her words made me start to seriously consider taking over the inn. The next morning, Sophia left. Can I come again? She asked before leaving, which somehow made me lose my enthusiasm a bit. Yet, I decided to dedicate myself even more to managing the inn, hoping to earn further recognition from her on her next visit. Eugene, a courier has delivered something for you, my brother announced. One day, my brother mentioned to me, and I picked up an envelope. Upon opening it, I found an invitation to a party hosted by Anderson Medical Equipment, the largest medical device manufacturer in the country. Thinking it was a mistake, I set it aside and completely forgot about the invitation afterward. One day, my father called out, "Eugene, you have a visitor." I had no idea who it could be, but I went to the entrance where a man in a suit, a stranger, was standing. "Mr. Fumpson, I've come to pick you up." "Yes." I didn't recognize him, and his talk of picking me up seemed suspicious. Sensing my confusion, the man explained the situation. "I am here on behalf of my boss. I believe an invitation to tomorrow's party was sent to you." I tried to make sense of the situation in my head. "Does that mean you've come to take me to tomorrow's party?" I asked. "Yes, we will take a taxi to the airport shortly. I have arranged a ticket for the 6 p.m. flight. Upon arrival, we will go directly to the hotel, where the party venue is also located. You need not prepare anything, just come as you are." Despite his calm explanation, I couldn't keep up. Why would they go to such lengths to have me at this party? "Are you sure I'm the one who's been invited?" I asked hesitantly. "Yes, there is no mistake," the man asserted firmly. Unable to decline under such circumstances, I reluctantly agreed to go with him. We took a taxi to the airport. And ironically, I was on a first-class flight. Being a reception hosted by a pharmaceutical company, it was undoubtedly filled with medical professionals. I didn't understand why I was invited, but I feared that revisiting my past after starting anew might lead to unpleasant experiences. I was already regretting following this mysterious man. After landing, we switched to another taxi and headed to a well-known upscale hotel. In the hotel lobby, the man who brought me said, "I will come to pick you up again tomorrow," and then he left. I was escorted to a suite for some reason. A high-brand suit for tomorrow's party was prepared in the room. No escape now. Dinner had apparently been ordered in advance and was delivered to my room. I decided to make the best of the situation and enjoy the suite. The next day, after getting ready, the same man came to pick me up. We took the elevator down to what seemed to be the largest room in the hotel. Food was arranged buffet style, and as I stood there blankly, a waiter handed me a glass of champagne. I wondered how many people were gathered here. Probably around 100. The crowd was all medical professionals, a familiar array of faces. Some recognized me and began whispering as they looked my way. Pretending not to notice the discomfort, I went to get some food. Then, I heard a familiar voice call out, "Eugene." Looking in the direction of the voice, Sophia was waving at me. Sophia. Dressed in a gown, Sophia was stunning, standing out even in a crowd. She had looked good in her flight attendant uniform and casual clothes during her travels, but today, she was as beautiful as any actress. I couldn't help but stare. "I'm glad you came. Can I get you a drink?" she asked, easing my nerves with her friendly demeanor. "Thank you," I responded honestly. "To reunion." She raised her glass, said that, and took a sip of her champagne. Delicious." Pleased, I asked her, "By the way, Sophia, why are you at this party?" After taking a sip of my champagne, I couldn't help but inquire. "A relative of mine is involved with the organizers. I heard that you would be here too, so I took some time off work," she said with a mischievous smile. As we chatted, the party officially began. The first to speak on stage as the chairman of Anderson Medical Equipment was the man who had fainted on the plane that time. "He's your grandfather, right?" "The company was founded by my grandfather. The current CEO is my father," she replied, still with that playful smile. Then I turned my attention to Chairman Anderson on the stage. "As you know, We pride ourselves on being the top pharmaceutical manufacturer in the country. In pursuit of further development and for the advancement of the medical field, we have been planning a new project. We have built a hospital where we can directly use and manage our pharmaceuticals in clinical settings to see their effects on patients firsthand. It makes sense for the manufacturer, it saves on marketing to doctors, and hospitals get priority access to hard-to-obtain drugs. Plus, they can observe patient outcomes directly. Impressed, I listened until suddenly, Eugene, my name was called out, the lights dimmed, and a spotlight shone on me. All the guests turned to look in my direction. Blinded by the light, I covered my eyes with my hand, but the announcement came regardless. We have decided to appoint Eugene Thompson as the director of our new hospital. Confused, I stood there as a voice rang out from the crowd. That man committed a medical error 2 years ago and was virtually expelled. Can we really trust such a person with a hospital directorship? Without trust in the director, the hospital's management is doomed to fail. The room stirred. The voice belonged to none other than Dr. Vincent, the very person who had pinned the medical mistake on me. With a young doctor, Derek, who had misdiagnosed hyponatremia as epilepsy, by his side. That's right. Appointing a doctor who made such a grave medical error as director will tarnish the hospital's reputation before it even opens. Derek chimed in, supporting Dr. Vincent. Sophia had told me that Dr. Vincent and Derek were uncle and nephew. But regarding that matter, the chairman began to speak, and the room quieted down again. When the incident made the news 2 years ago, our company's product was mentioned. I personally investigated the incident because our product was involved. And what did we find? Misdiagnosis suspicions came to light. So, that means Eugene is responsible. In front of the majority, I was again being announced as the perpetrator of the medical accident. Suddenly, on Urswe a familiar voice shouted, "No, it's not true. It was the deputy director's misdiagnosis." None of the team involved at the time testified the truth because they were afraid to contradict Dr. Vincent and risk their positions. From there, I officially became the director of the new hospital. Later, the incident 2 years ago was acknowledged not as a medical accident, but as a misdiagnosis by Dr. Vincent. Thanks to a nurse speaking the truth at that party, my innocence was proven. Thus, I became the first director of the hospital, which quickly garnered attention in the medical community. Sophia's grandfather, Mr. Anderson, even asked if I would consider marrying his granddaughter, and I happily accepted the proposal. Sophia resigned from the airline to marry me, and she has been by my side ever since. The hospital's management is going smoothly, and we have been blessed with 2 children. Sophia, now approaching her senior years, is still beautiful and hides nothing. As a couple, we are somewhat famous within the hospital. There's just one secret plan I have kept from Sophia. I'm planning to retire from hospital management next year and return to my hometown with Sophia to take over the family inn. I can already picture the beautiful innkeeper by my side, smiling,